that's where savings are basically. In the House bill that they passed out of committee last week, there was about $16 billion savings overall. And in the Senate bill, there was about $4 billion of savings. So that's going to have to be reconciled if we have to get to conference. Yes?
Yeah, I wondered, sir, if you'd be able to give us your thoughts on Simpson Bowles.
Simpson Bowles, I mean, it's not even a subject because the president basically has appointed the commission and then walked away from the results. There's some things in that we need to look at, certainly. It's got to be coupled with tax reform that would actually lower rates for everybody, do away with some of the loopholes that are in the tax code today, so you actually can generate more revenue. But there's, there's spending reductions in that. Some of it's good, some of it I don't think is doable at this point. But we've got to address the mandatory part of the budget. There's no question about it. Some of the items in that I would not be supportive of. It's, you talk about Medicare. The only cut that has been put in place in Medicare is with the health care bill that took $500 billion out of Medicare to fund a separate new entitlement. So as we have all paid into Medicare all of our lives, that money now is being used for something different.
Isn't that from Medicare Advantage though, which they never should have had?
No, there's about 200 billion, some of it going to the Part D, but 300 comes from hospitals, nursing homes, and other healthcare providers. But that's money that was paid into Medicare that has been taken out, and it increased the, brought by 5 years nearer to 2024, the date of bankruptcy of the Medicare Trust Fund. In 1 year, it accelerated that by 5 years, just because of that $500 billion.
Is it the private sector part of Medicare, Medicare Part C? Do insurance companies, is that what was mostly cut?
No, there was about 200 from the Medicare Advantage and about 300 coming out of hospitals, nursing homes, and other healthcare providers. That's where the cuts were. Yes?
I'd like to see the Obamacare bill repealed. It just makes a statement. Doesn't the Congress or the House have constitutional authority to defund the program?
And we have, in various different bills, tried to defund, certainly, but we need to repeal the whole thing and start. Okay. Yes, but you also have to get a president and a Senate a president that will sign a bill to make those cuts, and also a Senate to go along with it. That's the problem, right? So we have discretionary side, again, we actually have reduced spending. A lot of that has been focused on some of these areas that you're talking about. But until you get a different president or different control of the Senate, you're not going to get it done. That's just the reality. Yes, great.
On behalf of the Home Builder Association of Greater Des Moines, our 500 members and over 20,000 employees, really appreciate you being here. Appreciate your support to the housing industry. Specifically, I'd like to ask for your support on HR 5911, the Lead Exposure Reduction Amendments Act. It's an EPA instituted act, and I know we've talked about regulations before that would actually allow opting out of the provision and saving consumers over $336 million a year. I have forwarded information to Clark, but appreciate your support on that.
This is just an example of regulations that have no benefit to society, but cost anybody trying to do business an unbelievable amount of money. And there's certainly concerns about lead poisoning and all that, but what this does is just goes way over what actually meet that need. And the ability for you to comply with it is almost impossible. That's the thing. And if there was a way to comply, it would be one way, but you don't even have the tools to comply with it. Yes.
Yeah, with all due respect, Congressman, they did just let loose the regulations for food stamps. I believe that I believe the eligibility is 150% of poverty level. I could be mistaken on that, it might be 120. But 20% of Iowans do not have the capacity to meet their basic living expenses, transportation, food, etc. And we, as you indicated, have less of a problem with unemployment than most of the rest of the country. Food stamps are something that are increasingly in demand, not because of what you just described, but because of a need to feed the population. In Iowa, 70% of the single, primarily woman-headed households are in that 20% of poverty. What would you suggest they do if they don't have food stamps? How can you justify having half of the cuts that are occurring within the Farm Bill being attributed to food stamps when the need is so dramatic? And how can you justify having a cap of $1 million for farmers rather than $250,000 when you have on the flip side that incredible need for something as basic as daily bread?
Well, and no one is saying to do away with food stamps and not have that support there. Maybe you should know that Mr. Boswell just voted for the Farm Bill that you're talking about. We've got the funds out of the food stamps.
He also lobbied heavily to try and have no cuts.
Did he not vote for the Farm Bill?
What are you doing with it?
Well,
What's your position?
What's my position? We've got to make sure that the safety net is available for everyone, that there's adequate funds there. But, the fact of the matter is there were dramatic changes in the rules for eligibility. If you signed up for Medicaid, you were automatically signed up for food stamps. We've got to look at the spending everywhere and make sure, because there are real needs like this. But the fact of the matter is we've got to look at everything. And there's dramatic on the subsidy side as well. In the Farm Bill, there's direct payments go away. The funding as far as the counter-cyclical programs is dramatically changed. So everyone's contributing.
I'm an independent voter and I'm a political junkie. Why did the Republicans complain about the deficit when George W. Bush was in office? He didn't hear a word then. And he's the one that got us in this ditch.
Well, I will not